Signs of some of the oldest known human activity in Australia were found on the Nullarbor Plain. Aborigines believed caves were haunted and that the Nullarbor was the home of a man-devouring snake. The Nullarbor is a desert plain covering 75,000 square miles. This isolated plain is one of the largest limestone regions in the world and is situated alongside the Great Australian Bight between West and South Australia. It contains a cave system so enormous that it's estimated their full exploration will take up to 500 years. In 1986, a group of expeditioners known as the Plain Cavers were brought together. Their aim was to carry out a systematic and well-organised exploration of the Nullarbor. Over the next 7 years, we made several forays into the Nullarbor. There was a sense of history about the expeditions, as we were to carry on the work of early explorers using old and new technology. In the past, the locating of caves had proved difficult, and it is only in recent times that the discovery of new caves has accelerated. Our initial trip was planned in Perth. We brought together the key players with experience in rock climbing, caving, hang gliding, cave diving and paleontology. The common ambition among the Plain Cavers were to push the boundaries of their own years of gathering skills and experience. The Nullarbor expeditions were a way of extending those skills in a new direction. So, armed with these skills, the team headed for the Nullarbor.
Going into the Nullarbor Cup.
We stop at Rawlinna, one of the few signs of life out here, and chat to our friendly property owner who has given us permission to explore caves on his land. The history of white man's cave discoveries on the Nullarbor Plain goes back to the days of the early explorers in the 1870s. Some caves, such as Dingo Donga Cave, were stumbled across accidentally. This cave was found by a shepherd looking for lost sheep. Numerous blowholes with their characteristic breezy, narrow, vertical tube entrances have been found scattered over the Nullarbor. In 1877, a telegraph station was established at the border settlement of Eucla. It was the first telecommunications link between East and Western Australia. And in this virtually uninhabited, isolated area, 50 people were employed to man the station. The WA staff sat on one side of a partition, tapping out messages in Morse code. And these messages were then passed through pigeonholes to the South Australian staff on the other side. It was a quirky pre-Federation setup. Access to this station was via the coast. It was only possible to keep the station functional by drawing its vital water supplies from Weebubby Cave nearby. Captain J. Maitland Thompson started the first explorations in the 1930s. He made extensive surveys of Conelda and Weebubby Caves, and his early expeditions were long and arduous. Most of Captain Thompson's later explorations, up to 1960, used aerial locating by means of a tiger moth. This method proved effective but expensive, and further searches were restricted. On all our expeditions, we used up to 3 trikes. These motorised hang gliders were to be the modern-day tool for the cave locators. A trike is transportable and can be assembled in 20 minutes. It only needs about 20 metres of cleared area to take off and land. A trike can take up to 20 litres of fuel, which can give them a range of about 150 kilometres, with speeds of up to 80 kilometres an hour.
Sid?
While the trikes do a practice run, the ground crew set up the perimeters of the search area.
Flat, that needs looking at, and this needs looking at, this bit.
And then I couldn't get a decent stereo on this strip here, so I gave up at that point.
Looking good. Have a transport anymore.
Navigation is plotted by use of a portable GPS or global positioning system. This high-tech piece of equipment uses satellites to tell a person exactly where they are within about 10 metres, anywhere on the face of the planet. It can also be used to measure distance from point to point.
Tell it to let them on.
Should pick us up now. You would think so.
Wayne Tyson is the founder of the Plain Caving Group, and here he coordinates the search.
Wazza, Stubby, this is Base. Do you receive me? Over. Is that Stubby or Phil?
In the early stages, even the radios were a problem.
Wazza, Stubby, this is Base. Can you fly over the fence to the west? Over.
Get about covering the fence.
Yeah. Stubby, this is Base. Can you cross the fence to check the markers? Over.
Negative, no, I can't see the markers on the fence, over.
Message received. Come in. Over.
Negative what?
Can't see them.
Are you going to land there, Greg? Over. I'm coming in behind Stubby. I don't think there's enough room for 2 trucks there, over. Okay, I'm going around.
Because of the salt bush, the rocks and the rabbit holes, the ground crew can only clear a small area for us. It's like landing on a postage stamp.
I'm amazed you're still alive.
What the...
We'll do a run at 1500 tomorrow, 1750 ASL.
That's going to take quite a few runs to encompass the cove that we've got now.
Right. Do a straight run, go zot, zot from cave A to cave B to cave C, whatever. Don't try and do sort of that. See, it doesn't matter if there's a bend in the run.
No, because as long as I photograph on the bend.
Once the ground crew had marked out the search area, the trike pilots surveyed from the air. This was to check for both possible landing and emergency landing areas. Whilst flying around, the pilots had discovered at least the possibility of 4 cave entrances to the north, and so it was planned that we'd set out first thing in the morning. We're anxious to get an early start. In a harsh environment, all the trikes have to be checked in a hurry before the sun gets too high. This is to avoid turbulence caused by thermals created in the heat of the day.
No good.
Negative on this hallway, and she stops at about 2 meters, just completely blocked.
Study seems to have another hole just to the west of where we are, so we're heading off over that way. We'll see you there. Over.
Oh, I feel the breeze.
fantastic. Looking good.
It's a bit narrow.
Really?
Finally, our hard work pays out and we find a cave with a clear entrance.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can head on down.
Okay, I'll follow.
A streamer signals to the trike pilots that the cave is a good find and indicates wind direction so that they can land. And a can of rocks marks the location for the ground crew.
It's tight. Very tight. Wayne's having trouble getting his shoulders through.
Going down.
Oh, this is so windy.
The strong wind coming from the cave entrance gives a good indication of the possible chamber size.
I still can't see Wayne. I can hear him though.
Edge where I'm standing, which is what, about 3.5 metres below the surface, and then drops down another 4 metres into a chamber about 6 metres diameter is what I can see. Sheena has disappeared off to my left, which is that way, and it goes into what? There's at least 2 or 3 other leads off it. It is a large chamber. It's certainly stand-up walking passage.
Oh, wow.
With a rock pile.
Many of the new caves are small and uninteresting, but others yield surprises.
Well, we've got a mummified snake here, a segment of a snake skeleton, which my colleagues up on the top of the rock pile have passed down to us. This was wedged high up in a little crevice in the wall. He's a big fellow, all right. I have no idea what sort he is. Unfortunately, his head doesn't seem to have been preserved. But he's bloody enormous. Okay, well, what we've got here is looks like a juvenile dingo. He's very well mummified. You can hear me drumming on his ribs there. The rest of his body is partly buried by rubble behind me. You can see from the number of incisors between the 2 big canine teeth here that he's definitely a dingo, not a thylacine. There have been mummified thylacine remains found out here, but this isn't one of them. This is a dingo. Look, his ears are still stiff. You can still feel the stiff hairs along the side of his muzzle there. This poor little bugger's probably fallen down the hole at some stage and just been washed around by the floodwaters, washed up in this corner and then partly buried by rubble. Really well preserved. Lovely little fella. It's a pity he's dead.
The search continues. Our 3 ground crews, in contact with one of the trikes, can discover up to 20 new caves a day. Each cave is logged and any discoveries are noted.
Taper, Wayne.
Hang on, I get
Goes west.
Could I draw a sketch of Poole's, just a round thing in the middle of the page?
It's on the Forest Ring Road.
Does it?
That's what Alex says on the map. Where we shouldn't be.
Most caves are surveyed extensively.
Hang on, pass it back.
The use of the global positioning system and the trikes, along with a well-organised and experienced crew, have streamlined the enormous task of exploring the vast number of new caves.
Hey!
He's not going very fast, is he?
He's not going, for Christ's sake. He's sitting there.
Stubby, do you want to return? Just say yes or no. only slowly, over.
2 words.
Is he returning yet?
No, he's not. Ask him why he's going that way.
Stubby, why are you going this particular direction, over?
One of the trike pilots has decided that it's a great day for flying, so Stubby has gone off on his own sky travels.
No answer.
However, this has left Bruce and Paddy just a little frustrated. Stubby did finally come down to earth, and here we find him exploring Perseverance Cave.
And it's very solid to the left. Just needs... What's it look like, Stub? Very cramped unless we can get this rock out. This rock's moving, it's loose. But what we need to...
I think we need to get the blade over and push more away from
We need a crowbar.
Oh, here?
Actually, we got a D9 on the surface? Good caterpillar will do.
Many of the plane cavers have learned skills from each other. A trike pilot may also be a caver, or a dry caver has learned about cave diving. Even the paleontologists have learned a little bit about trike flying.
I moved one rock aside, which was supporting a rock in the ceiling, and it fell down, and a few of these cancar fell down with just red clay in between them. And just a little section, only about that big. It's all cancar and clay. And I'm worried that if you try and claw through it, might just lodge and just bring down a bit more, but I'll let you have a look.
But an abundance of bones that is just mind-blowing. But this stuff could go back thousands of years, if not longer, hundreds of thousands. Just something terribly impressive. And on into there has been pushed a bit, and there's bigger things awaiting for us.
A dome formation, dome section. It comes in bell-lipped. There's beautiful gypsum formation in it, just like cobweb, in little cracks and interstices. Absolutely beautiful formation in there. Oddly enough, on one side, on one lip, there's a piece of broken kangaroo bone.
What?
God knows. It's too high for the... Yeah. The dingo, yeah, there's a dingo in there. So going from that chamber, you go just half right, and there's another small chamber with an almost perfectly preserved dingo in it. Stubby called when I said there's a dingo, he said check the number in sizes. I said I don't have to. I can see the colour of the hair on its bloody feet. Its ears, the hair, the whole lot is there. In fact, first of all, when Stubby first saw it from behind me, he thought it was fresh because he thought the eyes were still in it. It's unreal.
The reason why cavers get so excited when they first catch sight of a dingo is its similarity to the extinct thylacine or Tasmanian tiger. And on our expeditions, we've been lucky enough to find the bones of some of these rare creatures. A dingo has large molars in the centre of its palate and 6 incisors, whilst the thylacine has a fairly even tooth system and 8 incisors. The hearing system, or bulleye, in the dingo is much larger. It's believed the dingo was introduced by the Aborigines and competed in the same ecological niche as the Tasmanian tiger. Eventually, though, the dingo won out. Many fossil and animal remains are found in the caves because they fell down the cave entrance or were washed down in flood conditions. It's not uncommon to find remains among collapsed rock piles.
I'm not sure, I think Wayne was talking about over there. Oh, really?
Yeah. Bit tight down there.
Where a cave has water, this is where the dry caver's exploration ends. One of our tasks is to explore the underwater section of the caves to fully survey the extent of it. The divers from the subterranean dive team have joined the Plain cavers. These divers have explored some of the more well-known caves, far beyond any other expedition. Their aim is to discover new extensions of the cave and to update old surveys. The cave exists in spite of the water. One theory explains that when the water table dropped, the caves above collapsed. As the water table rose again, it filled these extensions at the basement level of the new, deeper cave. The divers prepare to explore a cave that may have new extensions.
And away we go.
It will take nearly 1 hour to pass the cylinders down to the cave. Each diver needs 2 independent cylinders for each individual dive.
Okay.
I've got it.
Right.
It will take another 2 hours to bring all the equipment into the cave, and then it all has to be prepared for the dive.
A reason. I got 230 and 240. Not quite 240, 235. 250 to 60.
Two divers begin the initial exploration.
It goes nowhere. Maybe 5 metres.
Be generous, about 7.
7 metres. Any advance on 7? Right, no more than 7. Ugh. Didn't do a bad job of getting in and out without making it too dirty though. That's a good dive, I'll go back and do that again.
All that effort and the dive is abandoned. But the divers are not the only ones suffering setbacks. The ground crews and pilots are having their own problems. And here, in the isolation of the Nullarbor, all mechanical repairs must be done on the spot.
This is just a gentle crunch.
What do you think?
One bodge. Oh, no, undercarriage.
The crew have to be a jack of all trades. Here, their skills are needed to fix a trike wing.
Step over and out on the way to beat the living shit.
Pain in the diodes down the left side.
An easier task than the old biplane pranks, and Paddy's handiwork saves the day. And if the divers can't fix the compressor, that means there'll be no diving. Wee Bubby Cave is one of the first caves to be explored by the divers. As other caves were being discovered, this cave was being neglected, and the old survey maps were incomplete. The divers wanted to fully explore the cave and bring the survey up to date. on the way we pass a sign which indicates the longest distance previously dived in Weebubby. We've now passed that distance and gone beyond. We dive to the maximum, which is about 40 metres here. As we make our ascent, we take our first decompression stop. These stops are made for various times at changing depths and are marked out on an ascent line. The danger is that nitrogen in our bodies can form bubbles, and that can be crippling. This is popularly called the bends, or decompression sickness. Making all these stops means it's way past our dinner time, so we rely on a few chocolate bars to keep us going. Cave diving is also very different from ocean diving in that the thirds rule applies, and we must use a third of our air on the way in, a third of our air on the way out, and leave a third for emergencies. At the end of the day, it's time to reflect on what we have achieved and what we will be doing tomorrow. Over the years, we have become a close-knit group. As we are out here for up to 2 weeks in isolation, we rely on each other. As the sun sinks over the plain, it's time to put out the cat. It's time to unwind, and some rare nocturnal fauna spring to life. The divers are also relaxing, and they're a different breed altogether. But their jovial atmosphere tonight belies the risks they face tomorrow, and the skill and concentration they'll need to see them through.
Gonna be in your road there, young Marcus.
In the morning, more than a ton of diving equipment has to be lowered to the cave mouth, and then backpacked another 200 metres over large, loose rocks to the water's edge. Cocklebiddy is one of the longest underwater caves in the world, and still holds the record set in October 1983. The divers today will only be travelling to the rock pile, the first of 2 giant underground air chambers, isolated from the world by kilometres of water-filled tunnels. A dive which takes a long 40 minutes of continuous swimming with 3 heavy tanks on your back. The joys of total freedom of underwater flight make this an unforgettable part of the dive. Entranced, we surface in the airspace of a massive rock corridor. We swim on the surface in silence towards the looming wall of the imposing rock pile. We are now well over 1,000 metres from the start of our dive. And here, at the turnaround point of our dive, gravity deals a heavy blow as we climb out with our weighty equipment. These photos taken inside this isolated rocky air chamber show the lake we have just swum across, and the lake on the other side of this rock pile that heads into a lonely but magnificent darkness. After a rest, it's time to return, and the divers glide slowly past fossils millions of years old and float through a tunnel of spectacular flat roofs. The divers periodically check their equipment and each other for safety. With a little time to spare, as we drift upside down, the roof becomes a magical floor of quicksilver that runs and boils miraculously into unknown caverns above our heads. And after a while, a strange thing happens. The divers' minds accept the roof as a floor, and suddenly, being upside down seems perfectly natural. Closer to home, the powdery black silt starts to cloud the water, and the frightening dangers of cave diving become apparent. Here, training, equipment, and experience become the vital steps to survival. The subterranean dive team once again surfaced to a world unaware of the magnificent secrets of these tunnels of liquid space. By 1991, after 5 expeditions, we have discovered over 75 new caves. Our bone finds include a number of thylacines, though none of these actually proved to be substantial. No new water caves have been found, and we're still looking for one at this point. We wondered whether it was worth continuing the expeditions. We decided to break out of our isolation and head for the biggest social gathering of the year, the Rawlinna Gymkhana.
Which is most essential and pretty good too. Crazy Goodwin with a very fine run there.
Whoa, good one.
We were surprised how enthusiastic the farmers were about our discoveries, and they even gave us some new leads. This was a boost to our flagging egos, and it gave us the infusion of energy we needed to take on another expedition.
All we know is the guy who found it was riding a bike around this ridge somewhere. That's all we know.
Okay.
Even when we found the predictable blocked cave entrance, we began to have a sense of humour about it.
Tumbleweed coming in. Where'd you go? Hang on. Yeah, that's right. Hold it down. Okay. And here we go. 3, 2, 1.
We came across a cave that had an intriguing entrance. Somehow, we sensed that our luck had changed. We had found our biggest cave.
Whoa, whoa, great.
Ladders and ropes were rigged and checked. Because of loose rock and rubble, great caution was needed to enter the cave. After the initial exploration and survey, we found the cave to reach a depth of 47 metres. It was only a few metres short of the water table, a disappointment to the cave divers. A decision was made to name the cave Lindsay Hall, after one of the plain cavers, Lindsay Hall, better known as Stubby, who had passed away 2 years before. Two of the plain cavers, Wendy Binks and Kathy Crisp, made some small bone discoveries. They didn't know it then, but these finds, and a further search of Lindsay Hall, were some of the rarest finds on the Nullarbor. The Western Australian Museum verified that the bones dated as far back as 70,000 years. Some of these bones were found to be those of the extinct kangaroo Sternuris. And others were found to belong to the koala, and this was the first evidence of koala in this region. As koalas only eat certain species of eucalypt, it was ascertained that the vegetation on the Nullarbor, therefore, was once similar to that of the east coast. Six months later, one of the plain cavers, Lindsay Hatcher, an amateur paleontologist, returned to Lindsay Hall Cave. After 6 hours of persistent tunnelling, one of the team, Mike Simpson, broke into a chamber which showed signs of being sealed up for thousands of years. Choking with dust, the team were amazed to find prehistoric bones that had calcified into the chamber's walls and floor. Never before had Lindsay Hatcher seen this many prehistoric bones in such good condition. A further 4 species of Stenurus were found. This extinct form of kangaroo sometimes reached heights of over 3 metres. The expedition also yielded a stunning array of bones. Giant echidna, koala, Tasmanian devil, wombat, an extinct form of giant kangaroo related to the western grey. From the beginnings of time, caves like Lindsay Hall could have acted like time traps which preserved the bones. Over time, the cycle of opening and closing occurred due to the changing nature of the environment. The unpredictable whim of time and nature will open and close these caves as it sees fit, and it's the hope of discovering new caves holding these secrets of the past that will bring us back time and time again.
Over the past 5 years, Plain Caving has discovered over 150 new caves on the Nullarbor. At least 6 of these caves are fairly significant discoveries. Caves such as Lindsay Hall, Caretaker and Matilda Cave. A number of bones have been excavated from Lindsay Hall, giving us quite a new understanding of the prehistory of the Nullarbor Plain. We've discovered at least 4 new species of extinct marsupial from the cave as well. Plain Caving can only operate as a team, and we have a broad range of skills within the club. People such as the pilots, the cavers, the divers and the technical expertise in operating the satellite navigation equipment all combines to produce a very cooperative and very powerful teamwork. We've only covered a small section of the Nullarbor Plain. We estimate that there's probably another 30,000 caves yet to be discovered on the Nullarbor, and at the rate we're going, it's going to take another 500 years to cover the entire plain. We've really only just scratched the surface.